Aloha, namaste. This is Radha, and I'm here to talk about our new moon that we are moving into, and also the celebration of Diwali, which is underway already. It's a 5-day festival, and the biggest day of celebration, Diwali itself, is also on the day of the new moon on Monday. So, this new moon is really important, and this is why we celebrate Diwali at this time. And the reason is because we have the sun in its state of debility, in its sign of debilitation. It's in the early degrees of Libra for this particular year. And this is where we tend to not feel as powerful, not feel as in touch with our direct connection to source, our own leadership, our own ability to have authority and to really shine our light bright is dimmed. This is opposite of, if you remember or are already paying attention to these things, our time in the spring of Akshaya Tritiya, where the sun is exalted. And in both of these holidays, we have the moon joined the sun for a new moon, because that's how that works. But then she moves into debility in this case soon after. And on this particular year, it's going to be 2 days after, because, like I said, the sun's in very early degrees of Libra. So it's going to be 2 days before she moves into Scorpio. And particularly into that nakshatra that bridges Libra and Scorpio, Vishaka, which is where she's uh, at her most challenged place. And then in Akshaya Tritiya, it's a couple days, 2 to 3 days. Tritiya is the third lunar phase that she moves into exaltation in Taurus. So this is a really good, seasonal reflection of like, okay, in the spring, things are growing and we're feeling, all this perhaps awakening and part of us that wants to go out and try things and do new things. And in this time of year, we might be feeling a little bit more like starting to pull in our resources and not spread ourselves out so much, not reach our leaves and our petals towards the sun, but instead kind of close in. And of course, where you live in the world, you're going to feel a stronger effect or not of the actual dimming of light. But the energetic of it is very strong. And of course, the Southern Hemisphere is the opposite seasonally. So these are Indian holidays based in the Northern Hemisphere. And I'm located in the Northern Hemisphere as well. But I am located in Hawaii, which is really close to the equator and or at least closer than many of you might be. And our range of light is not as dramatic as it is in places that are more farther north than us, where there's very little light in the winter and a lot more light in the summer. We don't have that dramatic switch. It's only like an hour or two difference between summer and winter. So this particular holiday is asking us to really look within, to find that candle within ourselves, that light within ourselves, and to source our own power because we're not receiving as much from outside of ourselves. And in this place in Libra, we have a tendency to reach out to others as a source of power and maybe even allow what others want or are um, pushing for to affect our own decisions and the ways in which we lead. So we tend to be less certain for ourselves that this is the way we're going to manage things and more likely to get input from others, which can be a lovely way to lead, but it tends to be less connected to source itself. Like when you're taking all the feedback from everyone, your own leadership is dimmed considerably. And of course, there's ways to work with that, but those ways tend to fall more in like the Aquarius realm where we're collectively choosing to divide the power or spread the power out so that there's a group of people in power instead of one person. With Libra, it tends to be more our own personal sense of capacity to run perhaps just our own lives. Maybe just your own sense of power over your own life, or maybe you run a business, or maybe you have a family and you're the head of the household, or maybe you just have, some pets that you're a little bit less able to stand in your power with. Maybe it's just your tennis game or your whatever sport you play. You just might fold a little bit easier on what it is you're trying to hold. And this is really significant right now because we have also Mars and Mercury already in Libra. So they're later in the sign. They're in that star of Vishaka where the moon becomes debilitated. And they have been here for a while. Particularly Mars has been here for a while. So we are already in a state of compromising a lot. With Mars, we've been compromising on our discipline. We've been compromising on our capacity to act. We've been compromising on our perhaps our strong convictions. With Mars, we often, particularly when he's connected to Mercury, we tend to have our opinions very black and white. It's like, this is right, this is wrong. And with them both in Libra, it can get a little messy. Like, this is right and this is wrong because so and so thinks so, or because that's what all my friends think, and I don't want to, um, you know, argue with them. Or there's kind of a trend, and this is not just unique to this exact moment, but I've seen a particular uptick of the kind of like, if you disagree with me, unfriend me kind of posts, or I'm posting this long thing, but you're not allowed to argue with it. Like these kind of um, things that indicate a lack of ability to debate and be flexible, which is what Mercury brings in, that flexibility. But Mars takes the flexibility and turns it into a competition or an argument or this is right and this is wrong kind of mindset. And so it can be a lot more difficult to have conversations. Usually Mercury in Libra is really positive for conversations and for communication. And this Mars conjunction, especially so tight, and I'll share my screen. They're particularly tight today, the day that I'm making this, they're exact, which is Sunday, the day before our new moon. But this is the new moon chart itself. So here in Hawaii, it's actually on the 21st at 2:24 a.m. So that's basically like the night of the 20th of Monday. Of course, every location's timing is a little different, and Hawaii is one of the later time zones. We're at negative or minus 10 GMT. So this moon and sun are here at 4 degrees in Chitra, which I'll talk about Chitra in a minute. And this is Mars and Mercury here in Vishaka. And Mars is on his way out of Libra soon enough. Mercury also, because Mercury moves quickly, although he's going to begin his retrograde cycle, so he'll go back in. Um, but these two have been traveling closely for some time now, and they are at their pitch right now. This is the 19th that I'm making this video, and they're at their pitch um, place of conjunction where they're actually together. So just being aware of the different arguments or quickness. Mars also has a tendency to cut things off, cut conversations off, cut them short. And we don't need any friendships ending over this conjunction. So the other thing is that Venus rules all of these planets right now because they're in her sign of Libra. So Moon, Sun, Mars, and Mercury. The moon is not there right now while I'm speaking. The moon has actually joined Venus today while I'm speaking. The moon and Venus are joined in Virgo while Mars and Mercury are joined in Vishaka. And of course, Jupiter has just moved into Cancer. So this is the actual climate in which I'm making the video, which I can even just flip back, but the timing is going to be a little bit different. This is close enough. It's obviously not 2:24 a.m., but it's 10:30 a.m. here in Hawaii on the 19th. So these two are really quite close in the sky. And while the feeling of the moon and Venus being together can be more nurturing or connective, the planet Venus is debilitated here in Virgo. And this is important to recognize because her presence here is going to be affecting all these planets in her sign, right? The sun is already debilitated. Mercury, um, like I said, normally does quite well in her sign, and especially when the two are on each other's signs. This exchange of signs where Mercury's in Venus's sign and Venus is in Mercury's sign is actually a huge boon to both of them, and they're friendly to each other, even though Venus is debilitated in Mercury's sign. They're friendly planets to each other. So that can really help the debilitation of Venus, where perhaps our strong communication skills and our connective communication skills help with the fact that we're having trouble being happy, which is what Virgo does to Venus. We struggle with our happiness. We're so busy trying to be perfect that we forget to have fun. We forget to enjoy. We forget to take pleasure in what we're doing, which is how we experience happiness. So this is really an interesting moment because not only is our power less strong and our capacity to connect to our higher power less strong, and our discipline has been for a while now being worn down and perhaps folded because of the ways in which we might be trying to accommodate others. But our sense of happiness and joy from what we're doing is also less. So we're compromising, but we're not feeling totally happy with it because our sense of perfectionism is like, well, everything's not happening according to plan. That, maybe our schedule's off, maybe our organization that we keep trying to bring into effect is going haywire. Everything's not happening the way we want it to happen. And due to Mars and Mercury being so close together, that can, come out in bursts of anger in conversation or arguments and things like that, cutting off, stuff like that. So right now the moon is in Virgo as well. And the moon and Venus are not particularly friendly, despite being both of our feminine planets. They have a very different approach. So we might be struggling with what part of ourselves is giving unconditionally and which part of ourselves needs to have something in return for what we offer. So with Venus, we're trying to make mutual needs work between two people of the same status. And with the moon, there's this unconditionally nurturing energy, like a mother to their child, where we don't expect anything in return. And so we can be struggling with that a little bit, especially in such a perfectionist sign where we're really trying to be perfect. It is a beautiful day to start some kind of beauty ritual or, somehow working with our body and our cleansing practices, things that can even just like a simple face mask or washing your hair and putting your feet in a tub of water, something like that can be very nurturing for you on this day, on Sunday, while these two are joined. And then as the moon moves in to join the sun, we're gonna see and of course here in Hawaii it's like I said, it's a little bit later than other places, but the moon will be moving into Libra by evening, by 6:20 on Monday, and close to the sun. The particular star the moon is in, and the sun, is called Chitra. And Chitra is the shining gem. It's shown by a gemstone, by like a diamond that's cut. So it's been chiseled to its perfect form, showing its many facets. So it's not just a raw stone found in the earth. It's been made to be beautiful through the work and artistry. And in this star, it's ruled by Vishwakarma or Vastar. Vastar is actually the creative energy that offers Vishwakarma, who's this divine architect. It offers him his skill and artistic eye, and he is able to make these palaces and all these weapons and all these things for the devas, for these beings of light. But there's another side. There's an energy called Maya, or excuse me, a deity called Maya that also uses this Vastar energy, and she uses it for the asuras, for the beings who are without light. And that can create illusion. So these same, amazing palaces can be created, and all the power that someone wants can be, harnessed to create whatever they want. But at the same time, the illusion of happiness and the illusion of it being perfect and light is is present. So this is a star we have to be really careful with what we see with our eyes, what seems really beautiful and shining and perfect, but underneath might not be a real diamond. Maybe it's a fake diamond or a fake gem. Maybe whatever we're building, whatever we're constructing, looks fabulous, but doesn't actually work to bring more harmony and flow into our lives. And this is really important to look at because the shell of not just an actual structure, but the structures we create in our life, the rhythm of our daily existence, or the way in which we interact with those around us, might seem like we've got it all, we've got our perfect schedule and this is all going to be perfect and we're going to take, Johnny to this practice at this time and Susie's going to do this at this time, or maybe you don't have children and you have your own rhythm of I go to these classes for myself and I take care of all these different things. But at the end of the day, it might be just too much. That might not be tuning into your natural rhythms and what actually feels good for you to do. And you might be sort of forcing yourself into these places, especially as we move into this time of the year where maybe you're actually needing to go more inward. And it's a time of year where, incidentally, there's a lot of externalized gatherings, right? As we approach from in the Western world, we have, the Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, this sort of constant holiday celebrating with other people, perhaps your family. And so it brings you outward quite a bit when perhaps your energy is not actually meeting that. So just to be aware of the ways in which you're taking care of yourself and the ways in which you're setting yourself up for success or not. When Chitra moves into Libra, we really look at how it's harmonizing our relationships with people, particularly. And all of the Libra cycle has to do with that harmonization of our relationships, that ability for us to compromise without folding on ourselves. Of course, we need to compromise in order to engage with other people, but we don't want to do it at the expense of ourselves. And so this is the theme of this time. And of course, like I mentioned, Jupiter has just moved into his sign of exaltation, Cancer. But this is a short little toe dip. So this is not the full-blown Jupiter and Cancer transit. He rushed his way through Gemini in a very short amount of time. And he is now going to dip his toe in Cancer, show us a little taste, a little preview of what's to come in 2026 before he retrogrades back into Gemini. But it is an opportunity to really tune in with how your beliefs are nurturing your heart. Are you really caught in the information circuit, which is what Jupiter and Gemini is? Facts are beliefs, and information is my beliefs. Or are you able to, are you really finding the nurturing and the soul connection and that unconditional love in what you're believing? Or is it all based on just opinion and fact and ideas? And so this is something to really look at right now as Jupiter goes into Cancer. And of course, for each of us, it's going to be different. So if you're interested in knowing what Jupiter and Cancer for this period of time and then, projecting towards the future is for you, my members group at patreon.com, Radha Home Astrology, I break down Jupiter and Cancer for all the 12 rising signs this past week. I've done that. I've also broken down Mars and Mercury for each of the signs in the subsequent weeks that they moved into that place and what their connection this week means, and Venus and Virgo, all these different transits. I break them down weekly so that you really know what each graha, which each planet is doing for you specifically in this place in the sky, because it is quite different depending on what your rising sign is. And of course, I'm going to be publishing the new moon report as well so that you can see what this new cycle is for you. So the final thing I just want to share is just about Diwali. This is a celebration of the light, right? Light, the victory of the light over the dark. And most popularly, we can look at the story from the Ramayana when Ram and Sita get to return back to Ayodhya after this long time of being in exile and then having Sita stolen. And brought to the evil Ravana's palace in Lanka, and then Hanuman and the monkeys helping Ram rescue back Sita, and then, Sita having to prove her own faithfulness in the fire. And finally, they come back to Ayodhya, and there's this big victory parade, and they light the lamps for them. So this is the big celebration that we have on, particularly on Diwali itself. Other things that are celebrated in this time, it's actually a 5-day holiday. So it begins 2 days before the new moon, and then the 2 days after. Um, we on the first day maybe are offerings for prosperity and wealth and these kind of blessings of abundance that we might want to bring into our lives on Dhanteras. And then there's these different pujas we do for each of the days. And on the final day, it's a celebration of brothers and sisters and their connection together. So sisters tie something around their brothers' wrists, and the brothers might offer gifts to their sisters. And so this is celebrating their bond together and that connection they have. Um, this holiday is also really honoring the birth of Lakshmi and her coming out of the great churning of the Milky Way. The the Asuras and the Devas have worked together. They've had to find compromise together in order to bring up this Amrita, this immortal nectar that they want. And there's kind of some outsmarting of each other going on throughout the process. The Devas try to take over the back end because they don't. Vasuki, the great snake, is um, being used as a churning rod, and they don't want the poison to come up and get them, so they kind of go in the back and trick the asuras into getting the poison. Even when the nectar itself comes up, Vishnu transforms himself into Mohini in order to seduce the asuras into not realizing they're not getting the nectar and only the devas are getting it. But many blessings come out before the actual Amrita. And the one that is the most incredible of all is Lakshmi. And so this is a day and a celebration where we can really look again at Lakshmi. We just had a celebration of hers in our most recent Kojagari um, Purnima in the full moon, where she said to come and bless her devotees. But this is another opportunity to really honor Lakshmi and the many ways that she helps us in these times where we might be uh, struggling with what true grace is and what true connection and beauty and love really looks like, because we have a tendency to want the outside version of it, and we forget about the inner need to have everything be very authentic and real. So this is a time of year where we're really getting more authentic and more real. This is a time when the flowers in many places will start to die, not necessarily where I live, but in many places the flowers will start to die, the leaves will start to shed, the trees will look more barren, and there is an energy, a need to find the beauty in just the skeletal and just what's left, the bare bones of what holds us, as the rest of the beauty starts to change and evolve into something that needs to be disintegrated back into the earth and come back again. And like this in our lives, we have all these, trappings and ways in which we show our happiness or we show our power. And there's a need to get real with ourselves. Like, is this genuine happiness or is this just, Instagram happiness? Is this genuine power or is this just me holding desperately onto something so that I don't lose it? Because that, of course, is going to not feel internally like power to you. So if you have a high position in your job, or you hold some kind of authority over other people, but it requires this grip to hold on to it, and you can't release your grip in order to have it, then it's not true power. So this is the kind of thing that we might want to look at and reflect upon in this time. And just, each of us has our own path with that. And that's again why I do these reports for all the signs, because even though each of us also has an individual chart where all of these planets are in different places and we're in different dasha cycles. So an individualized chart reading is going to be the best way in order to actually understand what's going on for you. You can dial in a lot deeper by just your rising sign, just knowing what everyone with your rising sign, which is, within a 2 hour period of time on the day that you were born and the location that you were born, and allows you to see, okay, this is what's happening in my life. This is what's actually occurring in my life right now. And it makes sense. And when you can make sense of those things, you start to play the game a little differently. You don't feel so much attachment to the things that might be just changing and passing through, whether they're negative or whether they're positive, whether we're considering them or perceiving them as negative or positive, we don't stay as attached to them. But the longer lessons, we really dive in, roll up our sleeves and say, okay, this is what I'm doing right now. And we're on the tail end of the Saturn retrograde period here, and we have Jupiter just moved into exaltation. So we have a little period of time here where we're starting to get back some of our hope. Um, and we're getting tired of the delay and the build up and the part where all the things we've maybe agreed to earlier on in the year, we're kind of, you know, been sluggish with. And so as Saturn starts to move forward again, we'll get moving with the commitments that are worth our time. But we want to make sure that we're really dialed into what gives us happiness, what helps us feel our true power, our true connection to source, what actually gives us feelings of inspiration and hope and optimism. What do we truly think without needing to turn it into this one side or the other side? This is something that's been a bit of an epidemic over the last years, maybe 5 years, maybe even longer, where the the need to have a side is really strong in people's intellect right now. And I think it probably has a lot to do with the internet. And so the ability to have a more diffuse awareness and think truly critically and with nuance seems to have uh, left the public building anyhow. Hopefully at home, people have some nuance in their thoughts. But on the public stage and in the internet world, the nuance is very few and far between. People get really quick. It's like, I'm this side, I'm on this side, I'm thinking this, and there's this, lack of actual intellectual intelligence and discernment and capacity to look at things as they are. And so that's my prayer for all of us, is that we can dial back into ourselves. And one of the best ways to do this is to actually turn off the internet, turn off the TV, stop scrolling on all these social media sites, read a book, spend some time in nature, observe the falling of the leaves, observe whatever the climate is where you are. Sit by a river, watch it flow, meditate, chant, do these different practices. Or don't do these Vedic practices if they're not part of your life, your world, or your belief system. Do something that does work for you, but do something other than just doom scrolling and barking at people on the internet, and really allow yourself to come back to yourself. That's the power of this time of year. So, blessed Diwali, and I hope to see you all soon. Namaste.